from California.
Well, I thank the gentleman and friend for yielding. And I want to thank my colleagues here tonight, Mr. Payne, Mr. Snyder, especially Mr. Garamendi. You've been an absolute fierce advocate for action on climate and other issues, and you're untiring, John. I really have a lot of respect and admiration for that. Let me talk a little bit about the report first. You know, this is a scientific report. It was created over a period of years by scientists. It's not an opinion paper. It's a paper that is based on facts. It's based on modeling. And if you do modeling, you know what happens is you create a model, you test it against the facts, you adjust the model, you test it against the facts, you adjust it, and you iterate until your model is pretty accurate. And then you make predictions. And that's what's happened here. They've got some very tested models that are predicting very bad things. And so it's an important piece of scientific literature, and I think science should be at least involved in the decision-making in our great country. Now, I think it's almost laughable that the administration tried to limit the exposure of this report by putting it out on Black Friday. Well, I guess that didn't work, because a lot of people are excited about, in a negative way, about this report and what it says. And I think most Americans recognize that there's a problem here. Most all Americans recognize that, especially the millennials and the younger Americans. They know because it's going to affect their lives. Their lives are going to be directly affected more and more as we go forward, so they're very engaged in this issue. I think everyone knows in their hearts that there's a problem here, but I think one of the things that's a challenge is, how do we move forward on this? You know, people don't like change. People like to assume that their lives are going to go on, that they're going to do things the way they've always done them, but I think one of the things they're worried about is jobs. Well, let's talk about that for a second. John mentioned that, Mr. Garamendi mentioned that I worked on windmills. I worked on windmills for 25 years. I climbed a lot of windmills. You know, it's a pretty exciting thing to do. You're up there working on something that's cool. You're looking down on the natural environment around you. You know, I tell you, if I was a coal miner, I'd say, you know, that's a pretty good alternative to going down in coal mines and breathing dust, is to go up on windmills. It's kind of cold sometimes, but to go up on windmills and work your heart out and create clean energy. So another thing to think about is the number of jobs per energy produced. Renewable energies create a lot more jobs per unit of energy produced. And so that's an important consideration. So why can't we move forward? I mean, I think the economy is going to improve if we reduce our consumption of fossil fuels. It'll create jobs. It'll make the environment cleaner. We'll have less health impacts that we're seeing from fossil fuels, from coal, from oil, and certainly see a lot less climate impact. So there's a lot of really good reasons to move forward on this, and I think if you can look at what America and the world would be like if we weaned ourselves off of fossil fuels, it's a beautiful picture. We'll have a lot of clean energy. We'll have people employed. We'll have people using electricity for transportation. We'll have energy generated from windmills, from solar, from geothermal, from all of these technologies that are there today. They're economic, they're cost effective. In fact, wind and solar are more than competitive with fossil fuels. You can produce more energy per cost of energy with wind and solar than you can with oil and with coal. And natural gas, you know, they say natural gas is a great transition fuel, but if you only lose 2% of natural gas emissions in the process of creating energy, then you're already undoing the energy efficiency advantage of natural gas, because natural gas methane is so effective as a climate change gas. So I think we have a lot to look forward if we determine and decide that we're going to move forward with this transition. And one last thing, I want to say a challenge to the President. Mr. President, we know that climate change is happening. If you want to go down as a great president, if you want to go down in history as someone that changed history, as someone changed history for the better, then embrace climate change action. Make a difference. Thank you, Mr. Garamendi.